control the kitchen chaos and streamline your back-of-house operations with Restaurant Technologies. Restaurant Technologies' Total Oil Management Solution is the end-to-end automated oil management system that delivers, filters, monitors, and recycles your cooking oil, taking the dirtiest job out of the kitchen and lets your employees focus on more important tasks. The Total Oil Management Solution helps prevent the burns, spills, slips, and falls that come with traditional oil management. Restaurant Technologies gives you and your employees peace of mind among the chaos of a commercial kitchen and can maximize efficiency for your business. And no upfront cost. Learn more about Restaurant Technologies and all the solutions they offer by visiting rti-inc.com or call 888-796-4997.
Hi there, and welcome to Menu Talk. I'm Pat Cobe, Senior Menu Editor at Restaurant Business, and I am here with Bret Thorn.
Yes, sorry, didn't mean to step on your words, Pat. Bret Thorn, Senior Food and Beverage Editor of Nation's Restaurant News and Restaurant Hospitality. I'm a little jet lagged, Pat. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I heard you just flew back on the red eye from Las Vegas, so Tell us about what you did out on the West Coast.
I had a really good time. It was just vacation, which, I don't do very often. And I even left my laptop at home, and it was so nice. But of course, what do you do on vacation? You eat. And what do you do when you're a food writer? You eat even more. So I went kind of nuts. Partly because I was visiting in Los Angeles a friend who is a restaurant consultant. So, there were places he wanted to check out and places I wanted to check out. And so my first day there, I stumbled and I stayed in a little hostel on Fairfax in West Hollywood called Banana Bungalow. And it's a little cheap hostel. I'm not young, so I got my own room. I could have, rented a bunk bed, but I don't do that anymore. But just wandering around Fairfax is great, and the whole West Hollywood area. So I stumbled into this place called Madre, which is a mezcaleria and Mexican restaurant. Just had a little sort of spicy margarita, basically called al chile, but it was made with mezcal and ginger and pineapple, as well as spicy bitters. And it was happy hour, and I got this $5 chicken enchilada with mole negro, which was phenomenal. The mole was so rich and lovely. And it turned out that I told my friend about it, the restaurant consultant. He was like, "Oh yeah, we have them cater stuff." Like it's I stumbled into a real gem. And then I walked up to Santa Monica Boulevard and wandered into this really fun bar and restaurant called Laurel Hardware, where the staff's just really friendly and has a really good energy. And it was happy hour there too. So I had some glazed pork ribs with gochujang that were lovely, and had a couple of beers with that. And then, I don't know, that should have been enough food, but I walked over like a block away to this taqueria called Los Tacos and had like chile relleno and a tamale with beans and rice. And then I went home to Banana Bungalow and went to bed. Which is good, because then the next day I went to with my friend to a restaurant in Beverly Hills called Bakari. They're a little chain, actually, sort of a small plates tapasy kind of place, and they just opened the one in Beverly Hills. And we had hummus with lamb. We had roasted delicata squash with cashews and farro. We had some cauliflower in chipotle sauce, and also wings in a different kind of buttery chipotle sauce. And the wings, I don't know how they cooked them, but they were sort of fall off the bone, succulent, wonderful. All of the food really stood out. Every dish we had was yummy, yummier than you would expect at a little place in Beverly Hills.
Well, how do the prices compare to like New York? Or is LA just as expensive?
No, actually. Bakari, most of the things were like $15, which
that's fabulous.
Well, they weren't huge portions, but and we also had like a sticky toffee pudding that is labeled on the menu as the best cake. And it's not a cake. it's sticky toffee pudding, but it was quite good.
Mm.
But yeah, each of those items was about $15, which was not bad at all. But then it's pretty close. It's like a block away from Rodeo Drive. Have you ever gone shopping on Rodeo Drive?
Well, I've window shopped. I've never actually bought anything.
Yeah, no, I definitely didn't buy anything, but I walked into this shop and just had so much fun. I'm like, this huge, like, I don't know, 8 foot across crystal skull. How much, like, made with little tiny crystals? And I just, how much is that? And they said, well, we can't go lower than $200,000. And I said,
Oh, well, sorry.
please. And I looked at some $5,000 high top sneakers
Mm.
that were bright red and had crystals all in them. And, at the same place, they had like $700 shirts, which, in the grand scheme of things, I could get a $700 shirt. I would immediately spill on it. So
Or you could buy maybe 2 dozen shirts that are just as nice, maybe, and
right.
they would be $700.
Well, yeah, this I think is an H&M T-shirt that I'm wearing, and I think it's $6. So
Yeah.
And it does the job. It's not.
Well, it sounds even more crazy that restaurant you went to was, so inexpensive. It was a block away from places selling $200,000 crystal skulls.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And before then, I went to an old timey place called the Hideaway, just because I was
Mhm.
waiting for my friend, and I had a couple glasses of wine. And yeah, the wine costs there what it does here, but
Yeah.
the Hideaway is an interesting place because it's like a multi-room little or big restaurant in sort of a mall in Beverly Hills, and been there forever apparently. My friend said, "Oh yeah, that place is so cute." It actually reminded me kind of Casa Bonita, the place that got a lot of attention in Denver, and that I would eat growing up. But it had all these little hidden grottos and stuff.
Right.
And so that was a fun Beverly Hills experience. I also, near my hostel, is Koufax Coffee, which is known for its breakfast burritos. I didn't know that until I mentioned it to a colleague of mine who used to live there, and she was like, "Oh yeah, get the breakfast burritos." And I had the chorizo breakfast burrito twice. It was delicious. My consultant friend recommended I get the hot links burrito, but I didn't want to. I don't want a hot dog burrito, but he certainly recommended it. And then I can't even mention all the places that I went to in LA and Las Vegas because our audience will get bored. Maybe we'll discuss more of them next week.
Yeah.
But we did a dine-around in 4 places in sort of northern Los Angeles, I think in Eagle Rock and Silver Lake, and I think Glendale. We went to a new place that everybody's raving about called A la Beirut, which is it's a little takeout place, but like they have lamb tongue that you can have on pita and lamb sausage on this really thin kind of Turkish flat, or I guess Lebanese flatbread since it's a la Beirut. That kind of Middle Eastern street food, but delicious. And, turned up to 11 and just so yummy. And
yeah, it's really great to see how, Middle Eastern food has so many niches, depending on what country is doing it. And you can't really just throw it all into the Middle Eastern or Mediterranean bucket. And now you're getting Lebanese and Turkish
and Armenian. We went to an Armenian place the same night and it's called Jengilov Hats. I think that's how it's pronounced. I asked the lady there if that's how it's pronounced. Spelled Zhengyalov Hats, Hatz, and that is the name of a apparently traditional vegetarian dish that it's on like a very thin, sort of slightly charred flatbread, and it traditionally has, or at this restaurant, it had 12 different types of greens in it. I couldn't identify all of them, but it was a lot of spinach, but also mint. So it's sort of this really fun explosion of herbaceous flavors. So that was awesome.
Yeah, that sounds delicious.
And it was so good. And before that, we went to a place called Cacao Mexicatessen that's known for its duck tacos. And we had two different duck tacos. One was a spicy one in an arbol chili sauce, and the other one was sort of more like a sort of just carnitas but made with duck, in a
Mm.
taco with pickled onions and stuff, and really yummy pozole. The corn stew that was just rich and wonderful. And then in Silver Lake, we went to a Japanese place called Ototo. I had a cocktail there with sake and a bunch of like different kinds of local California citruses.
Mm.
So it had this orangey and lemony and a little bit of yuzu. And this dish that doesn't sound that interesting. It's like turnips with shiitake mushrooms and pine nuts and barley miso, but all of the flavors just merged together in this way that was like, it was sort of the height of what I think vegetables should be. And we could really celebrate a delicious vegetarian dish without any meat analogs or other silly things.
Well, California's always done that well. I mean, I think they've been the pioneers in, plan forward eating and making it really delicious and global.
Yes, yeah, for sure. And obviously a vibrant Japanese community in Los Angeles, and we benefited from that. We had something that was kind of like ceviche, really. In fact, it tasted more Peruvian than Japanese. It was raw fish and coconut milk with a bunch of herbs. And then to top it off, we had just a really delicious fried fish sandwich at the same place. That was a phenomenal evening. And then I finished off my stay in Los Angeles with a really fabulous meal in the Arts District at a place called Yes. That's spelled Y-E-S-S. Modern Japanese. And I had this, everything just jumped off the plate. I had this sweet bream sashimi with chrysanthemum leaves and fresh wasabi. And the chrysanthemum really, I'm not sure how to describe what chrysanthemum leaves taste like, but they're herbaceous, obviously, and like with a hint of sweetness without actually being sweet, but sort of they imply that they're sweet, kind of. And then a really interesting salad with a bunch of herbs and carrots, radish, squash, and then dehydrated mandarin orange chips, and a mustard and white miso vinaigrette. It's just another one of those vegetable things where, it's just a beautiful combination of different plants. I also had tofu with salsa matcha, which I thought was interesting at sort of a modern Japanese restaurant to go the salsa matcha direction. And salsa matcha is, sort of like chili crisp, except it's Mexican instead of Chinese. And then I had chirashi, which is normally fish on rice, sort of served in a bowl.
Right.
But this was a vegetarian version, so it had persimmon and walnut and sunchoke and black bean, shiitake mushrooms, carrot, more chrysanthemum leaves, yuzu, sesame, and nori. And so it was just this huge, wonderful combination of different flavors. And all of that together, like it was this really like complex, fabulous, high-end Japanese meal. And it was $113, which for that kind of, high-level, fancy Japanese meal, I think was really quite reasonably priced. And Pat, I've been talking for too long. So
did they market it as like omakase, or was it more like, just you mixed and matched different things?
Well, thank you for asking, because they're going to do omakase, but at the moment, it's quite a new restaurant. They're only doing sort of a la carte. So I created my own omakase.
Yeah, sounds amazing. I mean, well, you've had a lot more interesting eating adventures than I have in the past week.
Well, and I haven't even gotten to Las Vegas, but I think I'm going to save that because I've been talking for too
Yeah.
long, and I had a really great time in Las Vegas, and I want to finish digesting it, and then we could talk about it later. How's
Yeah,
that?
we could do that next week.
Yeah.
Well,
But you did some fun stuff too, right?
yeah, well, I got to taste Taco Bell's new chicken nuggets, which were actually really different. Taco Bell does riffs on things that are served at other places, like fries. They never had fries before, but their nacho fries were, a Taco Bell twist on fries. And
They
the
sell
same
them
with
well.
same with these chicken nuggets.
So what was Taco Belly about them?
Well, they coat them in a mixture of breadcrumbs and tortilla chips, crushed tortilla chips. So they're really extra crunchy. And they're sort of rounded in shape, not like the flat kind of chicken nuggets that you see in
Sort of
other
like chicken balls?
places. Yeah, and they were, and they have 3 new dipping sauces. One is their signature hot sauce with ranch, and another is like a jalapeno honey mustard, and another is more just like a Taco Bell hot sauce. But they were all really good, and so I was duly impressed.
Yeah, there's a big future in spicy ranch, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
It fires on all the cylinders that Americans want to put in their mouths.
And then I also did a podcast with Brad Wise, who is a partner in the Trust Restaurant Group. He's a chef and partner, and that's based in San Diego.
Oh,
And it's more, you had a lot of California vegetable forward dishes. He does a lot of, he has a concept called Rare Society that focuses on meat. So,
oh yes, I remember.
yeah.
I interviewed that guy a while ago. Interesting.
Yeah, he's a really interesting guy, and he's very smart about how he's, grown his company and the different kinds of concepts he does. So he started by talking about how a failure of his, which was called 100 Proof, it was a bar that was down the street. So once he started, some of his restaurant concepts in San Diego, he got a little cocky and tried this bar, and he talks about why it didn't work, which I thought was fun.
It was like a crash course in 3 months. Concept, the idea, my wife is from Central Coast of California. And so they specialize in the Santa Maria style barbecue. And I'd been introduced that many, many years. I've been, then she was my wife, yes. But before my girlfriend, she was introduced that to me. And I was just mind blown on, live fire cooking and things like that. And it was like, and I found out about it early on in my culinary career. So I'm like, all right, we need to do, and I was also, to add to that, I was the first person in San Diego to bring wood fire to the kitchens. And there's been multiple restaurants that's opened then, but so like, I'm going to do this wood fire steakhouse and kind of put it in between like Del Fresco's Double Eagle or now Steak 48. And then let's say the bottom's not the right word, but the most approachable is Outback, right? So we decided to do this mid-tier steakhouse. And then we just kept it fun and hip, and music was loud, and the design was gold and flashy, and it was kind of pieced together because it was a bar, but we didn't want to spend too much money, so we kind of did all of that thing. Well, come to find out, we just needed to service food, and the execution and the ethos behind what the group has was really what people wanted. And we opened in November, and I'll be frank, we made money November 1st when we opened.
So he was talking about how they converted this 100 Proof into a steakhouse because 100 Proof was losing money. And he just came up with the idea of doing this different kind of live fire steakhouse.
And he said it was based on Central Coast style of barbecue? I've never heard.
He explains that. So, which is kind of interesting. I think let me just see if it's in. Well, he talks a little bit more about Rare Society, but we can go to the Santa Maria style.
So Santa Maria style barbecue is what they call it. So they have they as in people in Santa Maria have a Santa Maria style pit that they use, and it's essentially they use American red oak, and it's just everywhere in Central Coast. like all the big, beautiful rolling hills in Santa Maria Valley and all of the wine country up there. It's just oak trees as far as you can see because you can't cut them down any longer. And we'll never run out of firewood, by the way, just because everyone says, look how much firewood you burn. And you look at one hillside and you're like, okay, those trees are massive and never going anywhere. And so they use a pit, but the thing is you might see some grills like to have these big wheels on the side. So what the idea is, normally you have these hot spots of the grill when you're cooking. You have that on a Santa Maria style barbecue, but it also allows you to raise the grill grate up and down to create kind of your own hot spot. And you're throwing in raw wood or wood that hasn't been burned yet on top of the coals, bark, to kind of give this, real sweet, subtle, smoky flavor that the American red oak gives you from the California stuff. And it's just a kind of a slower cooking process versus like if I'm cooking over charcoals, I'm searing and doing things real hot. And we have charcoal grills like that in the group as well. But this is just like the flame is further away from the grill than like a charcoal grill, right? So then you have your meat up high, and then it's the raw wood flavor, and that kind of gets a little smoke ring around the outside. It just adds a different flavor and complexity that people with steaks aren't used to. When I first started it, people, some critics or some people are like, oh, you're ruining a good piece of meat by putting all that smoke on there. And like, that's not the case. We're just enhancing the flavor and doing something a little bit differently. So.
And he does vegetables like that too. So it sounds pretty awesome.
Yes, that sounds really interesting. I'd like to try that. Maybe next time I'm in San Diego.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of California to explore, I guess. We need to move out, we need to travel there more often. But, now there are 6 Rare Society steakhouses, and he's actually opening one in Las Vegas, which maybe you can go to next time you head out that way.
I mean, this was the first time I was in Vegas in more than 15 years, so I don't know.
Wow.
But now I
haven't been there in a long time either, but it does have good restaurants.
Sure does, yes.
So he also, the way he serves a steak is kind of interesting. He sort of invented these steak boards, which he talks about a little bit, which is a sampler, but it's presented on these really cool looking steak boards. And it gives people more options because, like I said to him, I don't really like to get a big hunk of meat when I go to a steakhouse. I'd rather try a lot of different things because I can never finish the big hunk anyway. But that's beside the point. So this is how he puts the steak boards together.
We wanted to come up with a sample board, and then it evolved so much more in the last 5 years than I could ever imagined. But yeah, we kind of play on a trick of words. Our American Wagyu board is the associate board. And that's actually the less expensive one. So it's 3 different cuts of meat, all sourced from Snake River Farms. And then it's paired with certain accoutrements all over the board. And then, so that's a smaller one. And then the larger one is called the executive board. And that specializes in our house dry age program. And it's all different cuts of dry age, or 3 different types of cuts of dry age meats with different accoutrements to match those. And it's like we built these custom Lazy Susans, this board that goes on top, and it's like spins. So it's just like a showpiece once it hits the table. And my thought behind this was, if you traditionally go to a steakhouse, you normally have an appetizer. It's a 3-course thing. You have an appetizer, you have a steak, and you have a dessert, right? And it's like, okay, when you go to a steakhouse, you want to try steak. So if I can give them, an option for lamb or an option for a bacon or pork and an appetizer, and then give them 3 cuts of meat, you're trying 5 pieces of meat versus 1 going to a steakhouse. It's just a different experience, and you tend to not overeat when you order these boards.
That reminds me of, 10, 15 years ago when millennials were, we were discovering what they were. And they were sort of taking matters into their own hands when they went to steakhouses, and they would order, like as a group, they'd order 2 or 3 different steaks, and they'd just cut them all up and share them with each other. And it sounds like, he's doing the same thing, but he's doing it for them. They don't have to jerry rig it.
Right. I guess this generation, the next Gen Zs, don't like to have to do too much work. So this way they get it all presented. But I know you've probably written a lot about this year too. Like everyone is focusing on the experience of going to a restaurant now. And
yeah, they like to say vibe as though that's a new word. I don't understand why they think they've invented that. Yes, experience.
So it's partly about the experience. And there are so many steakhouses, so this really makes it different.
Yeah, it's a smart idea, which is why he has how many? You said 6?
He has 6, and he's about to open another in Las Vegas, which is going to be huge. But he also has other kinds of restaurants too.
Oh.
And he talks a little bit about, some of the do's and don'ts that he learned along the way, which is kind of interesting because he's really a very honest guy. So that was kind of fun.
We opened our first out of city restaurant, was a restaurant in Santa Barbara. Beautiful location, right in the place called the Funk Zone on State Street. It's the main corridor in the area. There's other restaurants that are hustling and bustling in there. Our place does well there also. And what you don't realize is you have to open a restaurant. And anyone that's ever opened restaurants before already knows this, or excuse me, open restaurants outside of their market before already knows this. I didn't know anyone that has done it, nor have I done it myself. So even though I worked for a company that did it, but a hotel is much, much different than a restaurant because you don't have to pay for lodging. You've already bought the lodging and built in, right? And that was one of the biggest expenses that we had. I just didn't anticipate. I tried to open a restaurant in another city like I would if I was living in that city. And that goes from the training regiment, that goes from the travel that, my budget was way off on travel. I opened in the summertime in a vacation city that is very popular. So, our cost for lodging was 4 or 5x on what it needed to be. So there was all these things that we did wrong. We hired the incorrect way. We trained the incorrect way. And it took us a while to kind of like dig ourselves out of that way.
Yeah. So he was talking about opening a rare society there.
Right.
Now, he also has an Italian restaurant in San Diego, and he talked a little bit about this ice cream place, which sounds really cool. And it's kind of like a no waste ice cream concept. So this is the last clip I'm going to play.
We have an executive pastry chef. His name is Jeremy Harville. And this ice cream, all honestly, we bought a restaurant that was called Cardellino. It's my Italian chop house. And we kind of commissaried the bacon area in this big restaurant. The kitchen was huge. So we commissaried the baking in this back area portion of the restaurant. So we produce all of our desserts for all of our restaurants there, and then we transfer them out to the other locations. Well, when you're making like lemon meringue cheesecakes for some desserts, or you're making chocolate cake for the Steakhouse, and like there's so many trimmings that you're trimming off. And Jeremy's like, he has an awesome ice cream recipe, and he's like, we should start making some of these ice creams and start reusing some of that stuff. So that would become like our daily scoop. And ice cream in the restaurants is like where we came from. Well, in Cardellino, there's a window out back that was like not there, but we're like, what if we just opened this window right here and started selling ice cream out of it in this town, with this area in Mission Hills where there's a lot of kids. And my kids are obviously wild. That's Wild Child is named after my 2 daughters. And then the ice cream just became this like chefy driven. He's really into the cereal milk flavors. I know it's kind of been not necessarily overplayed, but it's been really popular. He just does them with a different approach. He'll essentially create a dessert, and whatever the trimmings of that dessert will create that ice cream.
That is so smart.
I know. It sounds really cool. And he really wants to expand that concept because, he is in California, so they eat ice cream all year round on the street.
Yeah, obviously, it's not just kids who love ice cream. Like, nobody doesn't love ice cream.
No, I love ice cream. It's my second favorite next to cheese. 2
Mm.
things I can't live without.
And you don't have to.
No. So next week is our holiday break. So we want to wish everyone a happy holiday and a happy new year. And we will be back the first week in January.
Oh, that's right. So you guys are going to have to just wait and find out what I did in Las Vegas. Or maybe I'll decide that what happens there stays there. We'll see.
Well, maybe we could sneak in a little conversation.
Maybe.
But in the meantime, we hope everybody has a great holiday, and we will see you in 2025.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Control the kitchen chaos and streamline your back-of-house operations with Restaurant Technologies. Restaurant Technologies' total oil management solution is the end-to-end automated oil management system that delivers, filters, monitors, and recycles your cooking oil, taking the dirtiest job out of the kitchen and lets your employees focus on more important tasks. The total oil management solution helps prevent the burns, spills, slips, and falls that come with traditional oil management. Restaurant Technologies gives you and your employees peace of mind among the chaos of a commercial kitchen and can maximize efficiency for your business. And no upfront cost. Learn more about Restaurant Technologies and all the solutions they offer by visiting rti-inc.com or call 888-796-4997.